Well, he sings up high and plays down low. He's the ribbon on the package. Stole it from somebody last night, by the way.
Yeah, I know who that
you
is.
Probably worked that out. Here he is, the boy from Sacramento, the white boy from Sacramento, Timithy B. Schmit. Good to have you at Undercover.
Thanks for having me.
And it's pretty exciting after, I guess, spending so much time in the studio in recent years, particularly with the Long Road Out of Eden album, but also getting out and doing the fifth solo album, Expando. That was, some amazing work in the past couple of years.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, it took me quite a long time to finish Expando because I was so busy with the Eagles, either recording or being on the road. So I had to kind of do it in the cracks, you know.
Mm. And Expando, obviously is a labour of love. You've written all the songs, you've produced the album yourself, you recorded it in your home.
Yeah, I did everything myself. I did it that way on purpose. And my past solo albums have been really a lot of everything on every album. I think a lot because of my collaborations, where I would be writing with a certain songwriter, and many of them actually, and I wouldn't always go where I would have gone with it. So I decided, hey, I'm gonna just take my time and do my thing. I had to think about, like, okay, what is that? What is my thing? So I figured that my roots really come from folk music. So when I really started strumming a guitar and singing, was with folk music, people like the Kingston Trio, which I mentioned in one song, and that whole folk era. And then, so the way I did this is I started every song with an acoustic guitar, and I developed recorded the lead vocal so that it stood by itself, just like that. Mm-hmm. So if you got rid of everything else and just heard the acoustic guitar and my voice, it would be coherent and stand on its own, hopefully.
Yeah. Well, recording the album at home and with so many special guests, I mean, did all these people pop over to the house? Did they all record with you at the home studio?
Yes. That was a requirement of mine. I didn't want, as you know, you can send files all over the world and sing on somebody's record. I've done it before. People send me, the files, and I sing in my studio and I send them back. I've done that before. It's not my preference. It's handy, and it's good to be able to do that. There's very many useful elements to that. Like you can have a mix sent to you if you're not in town and say, no, I want more this or that or whatever. But I really wanted everybody to walk through my doors, and everybody did. In fact, I missed a couple of people that I wanted to be on the album because they just couldn't make it. And someday I'm going to get Alison Krauss to sing with me. She agreed to do it, but we never had the time. She was busy with a certain British rock star.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And they were doing a lot of touring and stuff, and they were busy, and they were being very successful. But
she was planted elsewhere.
Yes. Oh, jeez. Does he do that all the time?
Yeah.
Mr. Pun?
Yeah, sorry.
That's all right. I know another guy who does that. So it was very important for me to have everybody walk through the studio, like in the old style, where before file sharing and all that. And everybody came, like including the Blind Boys of Alabama, and so it was great.
Well, let's talk about track one, which features Keb Mo, one more mile, and a very distinctive Keb Mo sound right throughout that record. So what you've done with all these special guests is you've kept their sound, haven't you? You haven't.
Yeah, well, I had no preconceived notion about who I was going to have on the album. I didn't even know if I would have anybody else in that. Well, yes, I did. I knew that I didn't want to be the harmony singer on every song. It would get old, and it was too much of me. I mean, it might be strange to hear that because it was my album, but I wanted different textures, and depending on the song, and people would pop into my head as I wrote this song, these songs. That song, One More Mile, was it's one of my favorites. It just really kind of came out really naturally, and it's in a style sort of that you might not expect from me, I guess. It's a song that I recorded live with my guitar and vocal. I went like, let's just use that one, because I liked how raw and rough it was, and it was very un-Eagles. I didn't want it to be really polished up and pristine. I wanted it to be a little more raw. So when I pretty much finished everything on there, including all the trashy percussion and all that, I had been listening to Kev Mo. I had his records. I just loved some of the stuff he does, most of the stuff he does, and I had shook his hand once, but I didn't even know if he would remember me. So I rounded. That's another thing. If I didn't go through management, I talked to everybody myself. I may have gone through management to find some phone numbers. I talked to Kevin's. His name's Kevin Moore. So Kev Mo. So I talked to Kevin's manager, and he said he would love to talk to you. And he gave me his number. I called him, and and within a couple of weeks he came driving up to my house, and it was really fantastic. He's become a really good friend of mine since. I mean, we don't see each other a lot, but we're comfortable with each other, and he has a beautiful family, and it's really great.
I guess Graham Nash, on the other hand, with the song Parachute, and that really takes you full circle back to the Crosby, Stills and Nash track, Southern Cross, all those years ago that you worked on.
Yeah, some people pick out that track a lot, Southern Cross, and I did sing on that with a lot of other people, but I sang on a bunch more of that album too. I sang on a bunch of tracks on that Daylight Again album, but
it's relevant to Australia, I guess, with the Southern Cross up here in our skies.
Yeah, I guess. Graham. Well, when I finished that song, Parachute, when I finished writing it, when I was developing the chorus, it just became so obvious. I said, wow, this I didn't really mean, I don't really plan these things, but I said, this sounds a lot like Crosby, Stills and Nash, like a song they would do. And I thought, rather than deny that I would go ahead and go with that and enhance it. Graham's a friend of mine, and I called him up, and he found the time to come over, and he's a real pro. He's really good at what he does. He's one of those, some people you have to like coach a lot, and I knew he would just get it. I mean, I had a rough vocal part that I was going to have him sing, and he maybe listened to it a little bit, but mostly he just came in and nailed it. And he's a real hard worker. Everybody who worked on the album worked really hard on it.
Yeah.
So that's how that worked out. He came over and sang and said goodbye.
Well, I guess if having Graham there, because you felt the Crosby, Stills, Nash and Nash connection, bringing in Kenny Wayne Shepherd gave it that young feel as well then too, didn't it?
Yeah, I actually I didn't want to keep it with all the older folks. I did want something young in there, and I sort of knew him from before. He actually toured, was it in Australia with us? Yeah, the first time when he was like 16 or something. That's when I first met him. I was very impressed with him, and this is a song that I wanted just kind of balls out guitar, just go for it, and that's what he does. He can do, so he was real sweet. He came over and just did that for me.
Yeah. Van Dyke Parks, another interesting collaboration. In fact, he appears twice on the album.
Yeah, Van Dyke's an old friend. In fact, he's known my wife even longer. I think just from their past, from like the Little Feat days and that, and during those times that she knew him, and I think I'm sure she introduced me to him like years ago. And he's a real character. He's a great eccentric, really interesting fellow. And I asked him to come over and to bring his accordion, and he just came right over. And every time I've asked him to do stuff, he does it. He's done that for me. And he even came and showed up at a couple shows that I did and played the accordion on those songs.
Right. It's Friday Night and I Don't Mind, two very different sounding songs as well.
Yeah. Also on Friday Night, that Van Dyke is the one that got a hold of Garth Hudson for me.
Okay.
Which is Friday Night as well. I'm a huge band fan. I always have been. And we were having lunch between recordings at my house. And he got a text from a friend of his who was at the Grammys with Garth Hudson. And the text actually said, we're sitting there eating lunch, and the text actually said, if you know anybody who wants would like Garth's services as a musician, he'd rather do that than sit around in a hotel. He was at the Grammys for I think they got a Lifetime Achievement Award, the band did that year, a few years back. And I just couldn't believe it. I just said, get me in contact, give me his phone number. And within a couple nights he was over too, which was a real thrill for me.
Wow. Yeah. So I guess that other connection with Van Dyke Parks is with the Beach Boys in the past, and of course you did the Caroline No song.
Yeah, I did.
As well. So everything seems interwoven on this record.
Yeah, a little bit, I guess, yeah.
How, over what period of time did you record the Expando album?
Geez, I think I started it I think it took me 5 or 6 years. I know there's only like 11 songs, but I was really busy. I really, and I'm not particularly prolific, meaning I don't just crank songs out. I really have to go in, like almost treat it like an office job. I have to go in and say, this is the time I'm allotting myself, and I'm going to stay here, and I'm going to pound something out. And it's many times you don't come up with anything, or you come up with some really stupid stuff, but you have to get through that process to come to the good stuff, and eventually you come to something that sticks, and you stay with it. So it took me a while, a few years.
Best Feed the Fire was 2001.
Yeah. Well, I didn't start working on Expando right after that. I really didn't start writing for a few years after that.
Well, I guess you were sort of sidetracked a bit with the day job.
Yeah, it was.
It's been keeping you busy as well. Who was Ella Jean?
Ella Jean is my wife. She's we've been together for 32 years, and we have 2 children together. And although I have 3 children, but Jean and I have 2 children together, and she is the love of my life. We've been together for a long time for good reasons. We are still really tight. We still love each other. Jean is she doesn't go by Ella, but I always loved that name. Jean is actually her middle name. She is an artist. She did all the artwork for my album. She was in Hawaii working on an art project. She was supposed to be gone for a week or two during a certain period of time, and she kept calling me and saying, I think if it's cool, I want to stay another week. She was actually making a canoe for this art project with a friend out of a tree stump, and that canoe is now in her studio in Los Angeles. It's beautiful. It's unbelievable. She's really something. Anyway, the 2 weeks turned into about 5 or 6 weeks. It got really long, and so I decided to write her a song. I got up one morning, picked up the guitar, and I sang, "I don't much like it when you are gone." And I wrote it as a present for her when she came home. And then I never really meant it to be on the album, but it came out so good, I thought, why not? And so that's that story.
Right. But it's not only have you written a song about her, you've written a song about you and White Boy from Sacramento.
Yeah, that's my autobiography in a nutshell, I guess. I decided to poke a little fun at I suppose sort of my life story, and it's all the lines in it are really true. You know, about growing up there in the suburbs and listening to the radio and you know, riding my bike and you know, doing what I did growing up there, and that was really a lot of fun, and so. Right from the beginning, I knew I had to have some soul singers. So I, have you been to my website?
Yeah.
Because there's a little, you can see a little bit of them. I was working that out. Well, I at first I tried to get this other trio of women. And they were Linda Ronstadt, Alison Krauss, and Jennifer Warnes. I got two of them. On board, and then I couldn't get the third one. And I thought, God, you know, this is happening for a reason. I really want black girls. I do. I want some real soul singers. I got a hold of one of the girls from a producer friend of mine, John Boylan, produced Little River Band.
Yeah.
He gave me the number of Marlena, one of the women, and she came over with the two others, and it was so much fun. I actually, on the phone, I said to her, I have to tell you the nature of this song. I said it's about me, and it's called White Boy from Sacramento. Do you have any problem with that? She says, no, none at all. Just we're going to come and we aim to please. So, and they certainly did.
Well, you mentioned John Boylan there. You also worked with one of our Australian greats, Glenn Shorrock, on his first solo album, didn't you?
I did, yeah. I'm surprised we haven't seen him. I think he's
in Sydney.
He's in Sydney?
Yeah.
Oh. Hi, Glenn. Yeah, I did. Also on White Boy, my son Ben, who's now 20, but was only, I think, 15 or so then, I had him play drums.
He's recruited, yes.
And it was a little bit difficult because he was 15, but we got through it, and it sounds great. And then I had him play a little guitar as well. He's a musician. He's real talented, and that was. I think he enjoyed that too, and I think it's a feather in his cap that he got on this record as well. It certainly is for me that he's on it.
Yeah. The opening lyric of Compassion, it's amazing how it's all worked out. I'm living like a king.
Yeah.
You must pinch yourself every morning.
Well, you know, I sort of do. I really do. I'm 63 years old, and I'm like so many. There's so many people, kids. You know, when we were teenagers, who aspiring young musicians who had all these dreams of fame and fortune and all that, you know, and so few of us get to actually go on and do that, and I throw up gratitude every day out into the universe for what's happened to me. I really can't believe it sometimes. It's really great. I do know that it didn't just happen. I know there was a lot of hard work, a lot of hustle and whatnot, but there's also all those cliches, being in the right place at the right time, and all that I'm sure had a certain amount of serendipity. But there's a ton of people who are extremely talented. It's just not going to happen for, and I'm really grateful for that. And that song is really, has a lot to do with that. And it's amazing to me.
The line later in the song where you sing, "I constantly remind myself how quickly things could change."
Yeah.
Does it worry you that it could all disappear? Because it's very unlikely that it ever would.
Well, it depends on what you're talking about. I mean, I could go out there and like have a heart attack or get run over too. I mean, God forbid. But you don't know what's going to happen. So it's probably a a good lifestyle to attempt to stay in the present, and really see how much there is, and how I'm speaking for me. I mean, I have a really fortunate life. I have a lot of things going for me, and so I try not to take it for granted. That's really it.
Yeah, I guess you can thank Randy Meisner for a lot of your great life too. He left Poco and you joined Poco. He left the Eagles and you joined the Eagles.
Yeah, that's true. It's, I mean, like, how strange is that? I actually tried out for Poco, and he tried out the next day, and then they had me come back. It was during there was some other extenuating circumstances, like he had two friends who were already in Poco, so that pointed towards him getting the gig. The other thing was, it was during the Vietnam War, and I was like, he didn't have a problem, but the Army was like really close to wanting me, being drafted at the time. I figured that out, but eventually. But there were some things that happened like that, and then he quit, and then they asked me, and then back 8 years later or so, I got a call from Glenn asking me to join and to take his place again. Yeah, I mean, how quirky is that? You know?
Well, there's some great moments in Pogo too. Indian Summer, one of my favourite tracks.
Yeah.
Rose of Cimarron, which they still pop up on the radio today.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. Would you ever do anything with them again?
I did something about a year and a half ago. There's a country 3-day festival. You ever heard of Coachella?
Oh yeah.
Well, Coachella, a week later they have Stagecoach. They leave all, it's brilliant really. The promoters leave all the stages in place and they redress them and put, horseshoes and cowboy boots, and then they have a country Coachella, but they call it Stagecoach. And on one of the smaller stages, the Poco, they asked me they said, everybody's coming, will you come? And I had resisted for many years, and even George, the drummer who had a stroke and hadn't been on stage and had a tough time, physical time, was going to be there. And I said, well, if he's going, I've got to go. So I did a show with them. Yeah, but I wouldn't do anything. There's really, I believe Paul Cotton just he and Rusty just split up. So it's really there's only Rusty now. But yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about a bit of down and dirty blues, Downtime.
Oh. And
some more special guests.
Well, Downtime, you call it blues. I call it more. Yeah, I guess it's kind of blues, but then
bluesy.
I listen to a lot of jazz. Yeah. I do. Almost every morning I turn online when I'm on the road. I listen to a lot of jazz, and I really wanted, even though it is sort of a harder sort of bluesy song, I kept hearing vibraphone in my head, and I asked John Boylan, my friend John Boylan, if he knew anybody. He says he knew Gary Burton, world-renowned vibe player. And I got a hold of him, and he said, send me I said, this is not jazz. It's not like what you normally do, but I want to know if you'll be interested. And he said, send me the track, and I sent it to him, and he said, yeah, I'll come out and do it. So I flew him in from Florida, and he came in and played that. Who else is on that? Oh, yeah. Yeah, interesting. I mentioned a while ago that I really love the band. Well, the chorus on that song kind of reminded me a little bit of that, but I really wanted to embrace that more. So I didn't want to sing all the parts myself; it would be too pretty. I wanted something more raw and really different. I think the cool thing about the band was that when they would sing together, it was really raw, but they all had completely their own characteristics. It wasn't like, even though Don and Glenn and I sing, and it just works. It works together. It flows together. What I wanted was that, but on a cruder level, and a little rougher. So I asked Dwight Yoakam to come and sing, and he did. And then I asked Kid Rock, who was sort of a new friend of mine. I kept bumping into him, and I'd been to his house a few times at some events, and I just said, you know, why not try it and see if they want to do it, and they did. They both did it. They didn't do it together. They both told me that they weren't harmony singers. And I said, well, I know all about that, and I'm gonna, if you know, I'll just get you through it. So their voices are so different and so different from mine that it was tricky to mix that, but we did a pretty good job, I think, and that's how that happened. Really, just because I would go like, gee, I'd really like so and so. I think I'll call them and see if they'll do this, and most of the time people came.
Yeah. Well, Melancholy is pretty much you by yourself, really. Isn't
Yeah,
it?
that one I did, I think, totally by myself. Yeah, except drums, Jim Keltner. Yeah, that's just a, you know, I find that I'm a fairly moody person, and that's really kind of what that is. You know, it's about one of those days when you get up and you sigh before you brush your teeth for no apparent reason. You know, it's just that strange biorhythm day or something.
Was it written in one of those moods then?
I guess yeah, it must have been. I must have started it that way, and then I stayed with it. Yeah.
Well, I guess if we talk about the next track, which is Secular Praise, and getting the Blind Boys of Alabama to come round to the house is pretty cool, isn't it?
Very cool. I'd been a big fan of theirs. I'd seen them twice live, and I ran into them in an elevator in Atlanta. They got on my elevator with this woman who was, you know, guiding them back to their room. They were all dressed. They had just done some sort of show in the hotel somewhere. And they walked in the elevator, you know, arm on shoulder, and I said out loud, I said, "Wow, it's the Blind Boys of Alabama!" And then the woman who was escorting them said, "Oh, and I see we have one of the Eagles." She recognized me, and before I knew it, I got off on their floor, started talking to them, and then I eventually talked to their manager and found out when they were going to be in L.A. And I put them up for a day, and you know, and we worked out the finances, and they came to my house. They were singing. Somebody obviously was driving them in a minivan up my long driveway, and they were singing to the track in the car. They were practicing their parts. It was so great.
It must be wonderful being one of your neighbours in the street, watching all these people driving up and down.
Well, hopefully they don't notice.
And what about Good Day, the final track on the record?
Yeah, that's just a song that just, you know, I think I remember I started that. I was in Hawaii at the time, and I got up and I started going through a day, sort of just a day in the life, and sort of just embellished. And I just thought, you know, we're all, the Dalai Lama says we all want to avoid pain, and we all seek happiness, and that's really what that's about. It's like we just, at the end of the day, it's really nice to relax and say, wow, that was a good day. You know, I'm gonna go to sleep. I'm gonna sleep on that.
Yeah. True or false? Did you really come up with the term parrot heads?
I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was. I played I was in the Coral Reefer band for a very short time because I wasn't doing anything, and Jimmy asked me if I wanted to play for the summer. Yeah, I ended up playing for a little longer than that, but I was in his limo. We were driving to one of these shows where you drive. You have to. We call them sheds. They're outdoor venues, not stadiums, but sort of partially covered in grass. And we were driving there, and we had to drive through some people who were actually parked a lot of people who had to walk to go to the venue, and some of the people they'll recognize me, going, "Oh, look, there's a limo there's Jimmy," and I said, "Oh, you should stand up and give the papal wave," you know, because his fans just adore him. And I don't know. It came out of my mouth. I said they're like dead. They said they're not deadheads. They're parrot heads. You have parrot heads. And I said it, and it stuck.
Well, yes, stuck For a long, long time. Very, very good. Just a couple, and then we'll wrap it up.
Okay.
The Long Run album, I Can't Tell You Why. The magnificent song from that. What goes through your head when you get up on stage and perform that each night?
Well, you know, we have a really strong work ethic as a band, and we just really try and we strive to do our best. And there are days when you're, just like I said, being moody, or just even if you're not that moody, you have some days are better, or you're more on than others, and when you're a performer, it's no different. And someday, I just want to be able to sing it really well every night, like anything I do up there, any of the songs. That's all. It's really great that it's so well known. It's I've always said I'd really love to find a couple more of those, but I just, you know, I'm really just I'm happy that that people like it. I'm happy to perform it. You know, it's I have a really good gig. You know, it's I'm part of something that helps people. You know, lifts their spirits and charges their emotions, and it gets them away from their day to day. That's really nice to be able to do.
Well, final one. Whatever happened to Tim, Tom, and Ron? When are you getting back together?
Wow, it's too bad I don't have my briefcase with me. It's in my room. I have a picture of Tim, Tom, and Ron when we were 14. I put it in there for a certain reason years ago, and I've never taken it out. They are still really great friends of mine. Yeah. They're I've known Ron since we were 9 years old. We're literally blood brothers. Right. And Tom is a we're really close. And then after that was a folk group. When we stopped playing folk music and we graduated to borrowing electric instruments, we found a guy with drums, George. So we started a surf band, and those three guys, this was early high school, are still really close to me. And every time I go to Sacramento to visit my mom and my brothers, they always take time off and we have lunch together. In fact, we had our 45th high school reunion last August, and the original name of our band as a electric band was called the Contenders. So the Contenders got back together and we played at the reunion.
Fantastic stuff.
Yeah.
All right. Timithy B. Schmit, it's great to have you here at Undercover.
Thanks for having me.